Hello and welcome to Values and Vibes. Today we're going to talk about safety. We're going to discover why prioritizing safety as a value can shape our lives, relationships, decisions, and overall well-being. We're going to talk from physical protection to emotional security with my two favorite guests, Lancaster, CEO and founder of Values&Vibes, and Louisa Bulow, business psychologist. If you want to find out more, stay with us. Hello and welcome to Values and Vibes. Today we're going to speak with my two favorite guests, Louisa Bulow and Lancaster, about the value of safety. Safety is a value. It's a interesting value. And can you explain us from, do you have like a definition from the model Values&Vibes?
Yeah, so the definition of safety is to shield or protect oneself or others from threatening outside forces.
Wow, shortly and good explanation. Tia, can you explain? Can you do like a debrief?
I mean, with the safety, safety is interesting because obviously it could just be like physical safety. Like, I think that was an ongoing, like, lack of respect I felt for my husband when my children were young, because he didn't have the same respect for safety that I did. Car seats, our young daughters always be walking behind him, because he'd be on his like BlackBerry back in those days working. And and when you put the car seat in the car, like with the seatbelt, you shouldn't be able to move it. I mean, I have Italian parents and they have odds blocker every which way they look. So safety becomes very important if you're from an ethnic family where there's helicopter parents, like, wear your hat, wear your boots. No, you're going to fall. You're going to die. Look at that person riding their bike without a helmet. So safety is a very complicated, but it also, it extends beyond physical safety and it enters into the realm of the transcendent part of safety of just protecting yourself from harmful emotions and bad situations. And how can you do that? So, I mean, I guess that's my view of safety.
It's interesting. My mind didn't even go to like a physical safety until you started saying that. I was way into the deep depths of a brain of trauma and things that happen.
You're just thinking psychological safety.
Yeah. I went straight into an emotional safety because I think safety it comes from emotions. It must be a very old part of us that wants to feel safe. And the emotions that it elicits for people who prioritize this value and actually stories that they can say. And in fact, I remember speaking to someone who had safety as a lost or forgotten value, something they'd left behind, and how unstable their childhood had been and their upbringing and how that shaped them as an adult. And we talked a lot about it, made a lot of sense. And they were actually really impressed that the model was able to pick up on that, because it was someone they had never told me that. So when we had the conversation, it was just fascinating. So for me, safety is just this deep inherent need to feel in your head comfortable with where you are and the people around you, and almost like your pack.
It's funny that you just went right to psychological safety. I think that comes down to maybe being a parent, because the minute you're a parent, safety becomes of utmost importance. Are they going to electrocute themselves when they start to be able to crawl and move to like electrical outlets? Are they going to fall into a pool and drown? Are they going to, not look at the crosswalk signs and cross when the car is coming? There's so many. So I think it starts so early for a child of your parents teaching you not to talk to strangers. And so
stranger danger.
Yeah, stranger danger. So I guess exactly. So it's funny, but you're right. And in the idea of like psychology, well, think about Maslow's needs. Where's safety?
Yeah.
Right there, kind of at that base need, right? Because
you get the physiological needs, which is literally your oxygen, your water, your food, and then it goes to your safety needs.
Yeah, which is like having a home and having maybe the proper clothes, so you're not going to freeze to death and whatnot. So yes,
having resources and having help.
Yes, exactly. Safety is multi-leveled for sure.
But can you, if I did a training session with you guys with Values&Vibes, and then I got report and I realized that my core value is safety, can you make like some opinion about me because I choose that value? Can you say something more about me because that's my prioritized value, that I had some problems
before, or
I don't know. That's how you, that's an interesting question. That's actually a question that we almost can't answer because it depends on how a person deems the prioritization process. Because some people deem choosing a top 8 value as something they're not that good at, or don't feel, or hasn't been a good value for them. And so they want to activate more energy and time towards that value, or others feel as if that's just really important. Safety, like that, they sit heavy in regulation, the rules, the regulations. If you don't do it this way, bad accidents can happen. So I don't know if I could, I guess from the blocker, we could actually get a look inside to see if it's a blocked value, but not necessarily a prioritized value.
I couldn't tell you that you've been through something and that's why safety is paramount for you now. I don't know that. It could be that, it could not be. But would I ask you and discuss that? Absolutely. That would be something that I think we'd need to talk about a little bit. And of course, we're not clinical psychologists. So if it's a deep-seated trauma, that's not something we would discuss. But some of the roots of the safety on more of a high level and what that translates to as your behaviors in your life and in the workplace is something I would find very interesting to talk to with someone.
Totally. And I think if it's a lost forgotten value and it's blocked by a blocker, I think it's an even more interesting conversation, because oftentimes people who come from very unsafe situations don't even expect safety. Their life has been surrounded by a lot of recklessness and people that they can't count on, situations that were very psychologically unsafe. So they've just ignored it. Or, it's just something they've taken for granted. So it could be a lost or forgotten value. Maybe they're not creating enough safety. They felt so safe in their life. Nothing really dangerous, bad, or negative happened around safety issues for them. So they've taken it for granted. And maybe they lack a little bit, like I'd get on my husband when he was younger. I mean, he didn't have that, like, I always tell him, don't you have that safety gene? I mean, where is it? Like, don't you think like it must go hand in hand with the odds blocker when you think of it as a physical safety, because even when you have grown children and they're out and they're in another city and that maybe they had a date or they're with people you don't know and I'd rather not know where my children are as adults, because then I'm worrying about their safety all the time. So I think, I don't know.
It's interesting what you say, because safety is actually blocked by lens, which is a blocker that's a behavior that sits up in openness, because it's all about having an overly optimistic attitude to a scenario or a situation you're in. So you completely ignore an objective fact. So what you're kind of doing is you've developed a coping mechanism to put this positive spin on everything.
Exactly.
So you can avoid the conversation about safety. It's fascinating. It's interesting what you were saying that. I was thinking that's spot on what the model
lens
does.
blocker. Yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, because it's like rose-colored glasses. Okay, well, what could happen? What do you mean, what could happen? I could think of 10,000 things that could happen.
But
I mean, there's a person that's overly safe.
Yeah, I think also when you got like Louisa, you're gonna see when you have a baby, you're gonna realize that your brain changed. I can notice things that are dangerous that I didn't even notice before. Tia, maybe you can agree with me. Like, I would eat blueberries. I didn't think that somebody can choke on them.
Right, or a hot dog, or like a piece of popcorn.
And then you change, and I think it's good that mom changed, because honestly, in my surrounding husbands are like, she will be fine. High fever. She will be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, it's just a fever. That's childhood. And then you're like, look, like, no, but not. Because I think mom's brain is always like, we have a sentence in Serbia. So God forbid that something that your mom thinks happened really, and God bless if everything that your wife thinks it's really happened. Like, what your wife is always seeing you with other girls, you're having fun. Like. And God,
exactly.
That would be nice if that happened to you. But if, God forbid, if something happened that your mom is thinking, like, so I completely agree with that.
Yeah, no, it's, I mean, safety. I mean, I think about it, it's kind of a crazy story, but when Maria, my youngest, was diagnosed with cancer and she lost an eye, I was I had always had high expectations of my kids, but I wasn't super regulated as far as rules in my house, a certain bedtime, a certain this. It's just they were expected to do their homework, to be kind, and there was some, and to work work to their potential as hard as they can. But I remember when the doctor said to me, she's like, okay, she's like, we're going to be removing her eye tomorrow. We're not sure she'll live or die, but, hopefully she'll get through this, because it was this cancer. And she said, and I'm going to tell you something. She goes, after we remove her eye in the next couple of days after the procedure, she goes, you're going to go upstairs and there's like an optometrist office there, and you're going to get your daughter, Maria, a pair of glasses. She said, and she's going to have those glasses on every waking minute from the moment she opens her eyes until the moment she closes her eyes. If those glasses are not on her head and she loses the only good eye she has and she's blind, it's your fault. I will never forget that. I mean, it was like, I was like, there wasn't anything. There was nowhere we went. She was running out the door because Colin's always grabbing them to go to Target or wherever they were going to go to get a toy. And I'd be running out the door, give her those glasses, because you don't think of it, but she's like so many children lose eyes with a Barbie doll or a stick outside. And never was safety so important to me than when I had a sick child, because I was like, you already felt like you failed them because they were diagnosed with some illness, and you take immediate blame. Even as a parent, what would I have done? I must have done something wrong. Why would this happen? You go through a lot of different stages of grief, but the safety aspect of it, I mean, honestly, she said that to me and I was like, and she didn't go anywhere without her glasses. Now she doesn't wear them. However, she's an adult, so I can't, tell her to do that or not do that.
But
I do think it's what,
sorry,
say Milena.
Louisa, you can.
It's just made me think, my mum had quite a traumatic childhood and like kind of early adult life. Her father died in a drink driving accident. She just got a phone call one day. That was it. So when we were learning to drive, you can imagine all the trauma that was coming back through my mum's head, and you saying those stories is an appreciation of where that safety was. It was interesting. I went home this weekend, and again, my dad's the therapist. Me and my mum and him were talking about attachment theory, and I was saying she's very attached to me. She has fine friends. She wants to know where I am, just because she knows at night if she can check where I am in my bed, that's fantastic. Yes. She can rest well, and I totally understand from situations that she has been through that is something important. That physical Louisa is at home in her bed and I know where she is, and therefore very happy to have that. But for me, I don't know how that, I mean, I was jumping off cliffs in the Philippines. I wasn't really thinking about it.
No, you're not. I mean, when you're only taking care of yourself still and you're young enough.
Yes.
And if you, and then it doesn't, you're thinking, oh my God, they're crazy. Why are they worried about me? People do this all the time. I can do it. But it's when it's this kind of like Milena said, you have children, this flip kind of switches. It was actually interesting for me when we did our course. And they speak a lot in any psychology, but especially in organizational psychology, about people feeling psychologically safe on teams and in groups and in organizations. And to be fair, I must have always really at the forefront of my mind is exactly what I said, and how you said you didn't even think about that. You automatically thought the psychological side of safety, where I automatically went to the safety, like physical safety side. And I found it interesting because I always felt like it's in my ethos to make people feel safe. I didn't know it was that. That wasn't the term I ever used, but I think when you're in a group of people, it's been viewed upon you to make people feel welcome and comfortable, which you both are very similar, then that isn't something that you question. But I imagine a person coming to work on a team in an organization who's very quiet, very withdrawn, maybe doesn't have some of the same opinions, doesn't come from the same background, as different religion than everyone on the team. It's got to be a very, very unsettling feeling and really not very safe. So you can see how important psychological safety is in group and organizational settings.
In terms of creativity and new ideas and strategy and innovation in a workplace, it's vital, really, because psychological safety is ultimately a belief that you're not going to be punished or humiliated with your questions or your thoughts, your ideas or your opinions in a group scenario. So it's a catalyst for innovation, I would say, in helping people actually want, because no idea is a bad idea, right? That might make Tia think of something else, which makes Milena think of something else, and then we end up where we wanted to be. So I think it's a really important,
which is so funny that I guess I just had never thought about it. It was a term that I hadn't looked at ever before, to be I guess I looked at that as more as acceptance, kindness, compassion. All of those things create psychological safety, which is interesting. So I think that safety's, once again, another interesting value to discuss.
Why didn't you choose that value? Why I don't prioritize that value? This value is really amazing.
Because you might take it for granted. I mean, like, I think I probably take sick. I guarantee, I don't know if I prioritize safety.
It's interesting from my story from last year and things that happened to me, which I won't go into, but when I first took it was prior to a large event in my life, and safety was not one I prioritized, because I think I don't have the lens blocker, but it's that idea of almost just not really thinking about it, and it is what it is, so let's carry on. Post said event, when I took it, safety became, in my penultimate 16th, it became a prioritized value, because actually I thought, do you know what, when I know where my family are and everyone's okay and health is good, actually that made me feel very happy. So therefore, and I didn't really think about it, but as I was going through, I thought, oh, safety, actually, yeah, maybe that is more important to me.
Well, because I think as you age, it becomes more important. I think, unfortunately, I think that we're less.
But for me, it was that event specifically that created more of it. Yeah, but 100%, because when you look at the brain, and we have like an emotional side to it, and then we have more of a cognitive side, which more like our blockers sit very much in emotional. Your emotions over time flatten a little bit out. So as you get older, actually, potentially you get more control of your blockers, would be my prediction. And eventually we'll be able to look at that in a study when we have enough data.
I definitely think you're right.
You can temper that too. So maybe that's where the value of safety, definitely. In another assessment, there is a value which looks at security, and that increased. I think it was people over 45 or 50, and that makes sense. Maybe you're starting a family, maybe you need a job that actually has more of a sustainable income. You can't be joining startups.
You are kind of right about that. Like, I did the model, and it's for earlier iteration on, remember George from Armenia, from the Muse, Milena? He's like in his 80s. And he loved it, but he didn't choose any blockers for himself. He said, this is my 55-year-old daughter. This is my son. This is my other son. He chose blockers for all of his children. But I think at that point in his life, they didn't sit in such an emotional place.
He probably mastered a lot of it. So there probably was some presence of that. But actually, when you get control of something like that, it takes years and years, probably decades worth of practice to tame a blocker.
You're right.
When I was thinking about safety, I have when you mentioned
psychological safety.
Psychological safety. When I was working for insurance company, I went there and I had like a really good CV, and I don't know how to send email. I'm so lost, but they were doing so many. They were separate in teams, so they would tell us, okay, you can choose your mentor. And thank God I choose one lady. She looks like a grandma, like so warm. She's like, come to my team, because I'm sharing commission with her, and she's like, come to my team. I'm going to help you. You can count on me. So she gave me you're going to have like some salary. So don't worry, your bills are going to be paid. So immediately I was like, okay, I'm feeling.
She made you feel safe.
Yes,
exactly.
And then I think the how you say, cherry on the top was when she told me, every day because we work from 9 to 5. So every day from 3 to 5, you can ask me any question about work and where you're stuck. I can help you to figure out because of my experience and everything. And honestly, when I was thinking about safety, first thing that I was thinking, it was her. She made me feel so safe at my work. I was, I was always like, Google it. I don't want to bother her. I want to figure it out by my own. But if I know in my mind, and she's a good leader for me, that I can ask her, and she's going to reply to me, and she's going to show me, and she's going to, even if I ask her 2-3 times, she was like, don't worry. You don't have
not going to judge you.
You're going to learn. Don't worry. Our team, because we have like so many like new kids, they're coming. Our team that year kill it. We were like making so much money because I'm telling you, because we were feeling safe in some company that we don't know what we are doing. you know?
Yeah,
So
that's
I would recommend.
that's a great example, Milena. That really is, because I think that I always talk to young people about think about the first 2 weeks of any job, the first 2 weeks of school, the first when you're going into a new grade. It's awful because it's just everything is new, and it's and you're not quite sure, like you're not confident enough to like speak up or ask a question. And it just takes that one person in that environment to make you feel safe, that just kind of befriends you or mentors you.
But I would recommend any leader who wants to have like a team of 2 people, 3 people, not like 10,000 people employees. You know, like you need to show your employees that they are feeling safe. Okay, salary is good to have. You know, like you can pay your bills, right? But then they can ask. Like, you're not gonna judge them. You know, you need them. If they work
Yeah.
good, you're gonna make more money, and also
Yeah.
they need to feel safe. And honestly, I think everybody who is planning to be a good leader should think about that. Louisa should should think about
Yeah.
to make people safe in their environment where they work.
Yeah.
But I mean, we just did the value of respect, and for me, I think in order to create that environment, I would think, as my opinion, that respect would come into that as well. So to create some safety for people to make mistakes, and they're not going to be laughed at or humiliated. In fact, it's okay, because we can just talk about it and we'll go on to the next thing. And actually, probably hearing people say something wrong for me as a leader is like, okay, well, what can I do actually to make sure they know the answer, or how can I go forward? But it takes respect to do
It
that.
does, but and that makes me think it's not even, it goes beyond, and it just goes right into your family settings. I mean, I think if you don't feel psychologically safe amidst your family members, if you happen to have a parent that's somewhat abusive or doesn't allow you to express yourself in a way that's authentic for you or honest, I think that would be a terrible way, to grow up, to feel,
not to be able to go to your parents if you had an issue where you did feel something had happened, or you do feel
very vulnerable, like something you did wrong, or something
and
you
you
did wrong.
can't go there. Yeah.
It's always those parents who really, you try to tell your children, listen, I'm going to be happy if you do something that really kind of is against the moral code of our family or of you, but I want to know because I love you and I'm going to help you. I mean, that's the biggest safety net you can provide, like I think in a family, to people,
But I completely agree. You need to go back. You need to go back in that role that you were young, that you were, that was like your first 2 weeks at some other job. You know, like that was like, you need to go back. If you're, I think like my boss, she was a really good leader because she was doing the same thing when she was young, and she's doing that for 30 years. Even for parents, you were a child. You need to understand how it was with me. So if you help me, I'm going to remember. Of course.
You need to remember, it's always like those parents who are like, oh my God, I can't believe they're doing that, or they'll never. I mean, remember when you were younger and those first experiences you had. And yeah, I think that all comes down to like a feeling of safety, which is interesting.
Can you tell me if I prioritize value as a safety, how can I practice daily, monthly, weekly, whatever, just to practice safety in my relationship, my marriage, my regular day,
I would wonder if what that relationship, I kind of go back to knowing the boundaries, or at least knowing what that.
I was just gonna say the same thing.
If I was going to go to that person or your significant other, what can you do to make them feel safe? And whether that's someone actually you work with, or it's a direct report, or even it's a boss to a certain extent, or just a friend of yours, whatever it is, what is going to make them feel safe? And therefore, how can you do that? For me, for example, safety isn't so much as someone going to walk around me like a bodyguard and protect me from a bullet. I'm lucky enough I live in London and the odds of that are just very low. But for me, the safety is actually if someone is out there to degrade my character or try and embarrass me in public, are you going to be there defending my side of that? Are you going to actually take my side and back my opinion?
Yeah, I think it's a lot like respect. It's coming up with your boundaries, your rules. What do I need from this relationship? What do I need as far as a workplace? Is this a psychologically safe place? If it's a place where people aren't very nice and it's kind of a catty environment and people are talking about other people and whatever it might be, I think that you have to determine, you have to kind of set your own rules, set your own boundaries, what it takes for you to feel safe. But I know that these are my hard boundaries. not safe if I'm not, if my spouse isn't calling me, if they're going to be 6 hours late, or if my child is, doesn't, every time they get home from school, if I'm at work, they're supposed to text me and say I'm home safely. I mean, there's certain things that you just need. And I think that's respect. I agree. I think that's respect. And if people can't show you that respect for what you need with your safety value, then you might have to reevaluate that relationship a little bit.
And
Reevaluate. Get reevaluating.
Yeah, you might have to reevaluate that.
and my last question is, how can companies, organization, how can foster a culture of safety in their surroundings, and how they can help employees to feel more safely?
I would say there needs to be some kind of culture where you're encouraging team members to create almost like an inclusive culture with one another, where they can share ideas and what am I trying to say? Kind of share ideas and also have each other's back to a certain extent. If people, as we keep saying, if they make mistakes, be able to learn from it and move forward as a collective. So there's something about creating, like, I feel like this, again, an opinion, that safety is a bit like a pack mentality. You want to feel safe with your people. So to create that within your team. And if you create that from the top, that's something that's going to trickle down throughout the organization.
I agree. And I think it's kind of what it really goes to the ethos of Evaluate 180. I think that we want to give this model because people often ask us like, oh, I don't want to give that model to all my employees, or CEOs will say that because then they're going to leave the company because then they're going to realize they're not happy. And I say, well, that's precisely the opposite. You're giving them our model. You're showing them that you care about their happiness, their safety. If they feel as if, wow, my values matter, and that creates a safe environment, people, that shows respect, that they're important and that they matter. So I think that that's important for an organization. And I think happiness models like the one we're creating is something that can instill that at every level of an organization. Not to plug Evaluate 180, but it really does fit in with what you were saying, Louisa. People feel like they can communicate and they can speak their mind in a respectful way when they feel like they matter. So I think that it's about making employees feel like they matter, and that then they'll start to feel safe.
Back to the boundary point, isn't it? So set organizational boundaries that people can navigate within and therefore feel safe within.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for this nice conversation, and stay with us. We're going to speak about, we have almost 45 values still to talk about. So stay with us, and see you in the next episode. Thank you.
Be safe.
Be safe.
Bye.
Bye.